Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the b.HER podcast, where I am featuring another HER brand exclusive, interviewing an amazing mover and shaker in the marketplace who has presence, power, and profits to match. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the HER brand exclusive of the b.HER podcast. I have a dynamic woman of God in the house joining me today. Her name is Erica Brooks Henry, and she is a wealth and marketplace strategist of the brand I Know My Value. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you.
Well, before we get into it, y'all, I want to tell you a little bit about her. So Erica Brooks Henry is a wealth and marketplace strategist with over 25 years of combined finance, business, and wealth management experience. Armored with prophetic insight and the gifts of wisdom, teaching, and administration, Erica dived into marketplace ministry in 2001 as a mortgage consultant and certified housing counselor. Identifying the lack of financial literacy in underserved communities and communities of color, Erica launched More Than Conquerors Financial Program. MTC provided free, practical, and Bible-based financial coaching to help lower-income Atlanta students and residents and surrounding markets shift from poverty to financial stability. In 2007, Erica expanded her business offerings to include business development and custom wealth strategies from vision to implementation. Now, Erica holds several financial and business licenses, certifications, and trainings to include life insurance, wealth management, PMP, Six Sigma, negotiation, change management, you name it, and more. And her motto, of course, is stop getting ready, be ready. So this is a woman who legit got so much under her belt, and we just want to dig into her life a little bit. So Erica, you got to tell us though, like, what is your personal story that led to entrepreneurship, especially with the birth of the brand I Know My Value?
Okay. I would say it was two parts. It was, I didn't seek to be an entrepreneur. It was, I've always liked helping people. Mm-hmm. And I was in my early 20s, well, actually mid-20s, when I became a mortgage lender. And I realized that there was such a gap with minorities, people of color, and faith-based people. I was going to church, and the people that came to me for mortgages, most of them who looked like me were getting declined. Believers, we were talking about when the praises go up, the blessings come down, but we couldn't manifest the things that God promised us because there were so many things in the natural. So that was when I said, I don't want to just be a mortgage lender. Let me be a mortgage consultant and begin to help people through the process. Mm-hmm. And then I birthed that MTC Professional Services. Didn't really know it was a business. You know, you're just thinking you're doing something. You're helping, people. And it just translated into using my gift of teaching. Yep. To teach my natural knowledge, to help people who look like me, the underserved community, and faith-based believers. That was free. The other part too was I was a single mother of one daughter, needed assistance, but didn't qualify for assistance. So I remember traveling to visit my sister, and I went to an art show, and there was somebody doing an art show, and I said, this is an opportunity to make money. And so I would literally introduce myself. It's not my normal area of business, but that was my introduction to entrepreneurship. I was selling oil paintings and things like that to make extra money. And I used that money to actually purchase my first home when I was 24. Wow. So it let me know that subsidizing my income, because my corporate job, I had more month than money. Entrepreneurship, by having that product, allowed me to do the extra, make sure I could pay daycare, make sure I could, do some other things that I wanted. So that was the open door. And then when I really found my purpose, I aligned with financial services and business development.
I love that so much because, I love me some entrepreneurship, and I love hearing the stories of how people actually got into it. But one of the things, especially for our audience and our listeners, is that they will recognize that a lot of things is already in us and we must leverage it. I love how you were like, hey, I already have the teaching ability. So what can I teach? I know that I got tired, especially when it is birthed out of a frustration. Because like you said, you were in church and you hear people shouting and they turning around 3 times and they doing all of these antics and circus acts. And even though they're trying to do it by faith, they don't understand the works that go with it and the alignment that has to happen for it. And I wish it was taught like as a whole role in all of the churches, that is not just a name and claim, but you have to actually go possess what God has said that you can have. And that takes implementation. That takes you walking and doing something, following instruction, getting in alignment. So I love that your story was like, listen, this is how I started, but it brought me into knowing who I was, and I was able to start aligning who I was, even though what I was doing at first may not have been the full story of what I was supposed to be doing, but it did whet your palate to, I can do this. That's why sometimes I think about the story, you know, when people say money don't grow on trees, I kind of beg to differ. I look at it differently now, because I think about how it depends on who is the one who planted the tree. My job, if they planted the tree and I'm only able to get a certain amount of income, they control the tree. But if I plant the tree, then money can grow on trees for me, because I'm the one who's in control of how many trees I get to plant. So I look at it really, really different now. And I just love that you said that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So tell us about I Know My Value. How did you come up with the name of this? Like, it's just already powerful just saying it. How did you come up with it?
You know what? Literally, the Holy Spirit gave it to me in the middle of the night. I Know My Value. And originally, it was a name of a book. I wanted to write a book, and God gave me the name I Know My Value. Ironically, when God gave me the name in 2011, I didn't know my value. And I was like, why would God give me this name? I know that I was passionate about, I had a women's ministry. I was passionate about women. And so that book was for women. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is how I'm going to teach women their value, etc. But I just believe along the way, it was a time where God was showing me, number one, when you know whose you are, that's the definition of it, we begin to know who we are. And then it unveiled that I know my value because Jesus paid the price. And so that was the start of it. And then it evolved into knowing your value in relationships, knowing your value in the marketplace. So originally it started off as a book title. It transitioned to the name of my women's ministry. And then God gave me more revelation. Wait a minute, even in the marketplace, we must know our value. And so it became, instead of the nonprofit ministry, it became the LLC in my business. I Know My Value, because I think sometimes as believers, and especially if we're leaders, we think that we can't charge our worth in the marketplace, because wait a minute. And so that's the thing. Know your value spiritually first, personally second, and then in the marketplace. And so that's the whole totality of it. I know my value because Jesus paid the price.
Oh, I love it so much. Even with the market title you have, Wealth and Marketplace Strategist, I love how you bring it together, because you are not just having this title to be having this title. You really are like an expert with finances, like financial management, wealth management, succession planning, like all of that. But then what do you consider to be a marketplace strategist? How does these two kind of correlate?
I think that a lot of people can be coached, right? Like, think about football or sports. You have that coach running beside on the sideline. They give you all the plays. But what I realize is that some people don't want to implement. You could give them all, because coaching requires you to do something. And so sometimes I would say I'm kind of hybrid between a consultant and a strategist. Some of it is done for you, because a lot of times people are not willing to do the work. And what is a marketplace strategist? A lot of people have ideas, but they lack strategy. And so what my assignment is my motto is, God has given you the ability to get wealth. I provide a roadmap. People think that God is going to give us wealth, but it says, I've given you the power to get wealth. So that strategist, a marketplace strategist, is helping you tap into that power. What do you do? How do you now, what are your gifts? How do you align what you're doing with your gifts? And if it's not in alignment with your gifts, then you probably don't need to be doing it. Now, what strategies? How many different streams can you build out of this business? Maybe products, services, etc. How do you now price it? So giving you not just the idea, I want to start a business and I want to do t-shirts. You know, why? The strategist, what is the why? How are you going to monetize it? What are the streams? How are you going to get it out there? So that the strategy behind it, the ideas.
Yeah, I love strategy. One of my three core things that I always, because I'm more in the brand development and helping women get that type of stuff out of them. And I launch it even from the story when Elijah went to the widow woman's house, and she was in like some serious, financial debt to the
Yes.
point that her sons were going to be sold off to pay
Sold.
for it. If that was still a strategy, a moment today as a law boy, with our children being
Yes.
imprisoned over our lack of financial management. But I love how Prophet Elisha went to her and said, "What's in your house?"
Yes.
And so the whole time she was walking past something that had value that she literally did not give value to, but it was the income stream to get her out. And then I love the last part where it says, and her sons lived off the rest. Not just her, not just the sons in the house, but her and her sons, which signifies generational wealth. So I think about that when I encountered you, I immediately thought about that, how, and it's not many, I haven't met many of, I would say, us that have that that knack or that prophetic insight to be like, you are more than just the author. Don't you see that you're not just you have a whole message to speak. And of course you should look into, speaking opportunities, but you ever thought about doing digital courses, taking your book and slicing it into 12 pieces and making it a program and walking people? Like, I love the monetization ideation that comes from out of like strategic conversations like you talk about. And so I love this conversation so much. And you already know I love your brand, because it is just that the people need to know that they actually have wealth locked in them. Like you said, that he's given us the power. And I always look at God saying, listen, I've given Adam and Eve trees, right? But I didn't give them a dining room set. I didn't give them shelter. Eventually they were going to get tired of the elements. Eventually they was going to get tired of sitting on the grass. They're going to figure it out, because I've put a creative spirit in them. I put myself in them, and they have the ability to be creative, And so I love it, love it, love it. What has been one of your biggest challenges in your entrepreneurship journey?
The biggest challenge is me. And I say that because I love helping people. I love hard. And sometimes I want things more for people than I want it for themselves. And it's because I was that single mom with more month than money. I know what struggle looks like. And I'm no different from anyone else. God is no respecter of persons. God, doing the work or applying some principles that I've learned, helped me pivot. And so as I learn things, I want to take it back. And so the challenge is the rejection.
Yeah.
Because the challenge was me trying to plant water and get the increase, which is totally out of order, because I want to shove it and get thrown at us, right? And so the thing is, and the other challenge was realizing that I wanted to help everyone.
Yeah.
And so, and I realized that everyone is not my customer. Everyone is not my ideal client. And being able to move away from that. And so that was the biggest challenge, was still wanting to, just keep going back and, hey, you can be victorious in your finances. You don't have to be in lack. You don't have to live in poverty. You don't have to live this way. You can shift. You can have your things in order. You're not going to be ready. There's so many opportunities that are going to be missed because you're not ready. And so I'm being able to release that. So the biggest challenge was being able to release I'm going to plant. I'm going to go and I'm going to water something that someone else has planted, and I'm going to shake the dust off my feet. And the people that I labor with are going to be the people who are my assignment. And I don't work with clients. I don't care how much they're paying if we're not in alignment.
Yeah. Man.
So alignment, a lack of alignment, to make it plain. The biggest challenge was I had the wrong clientele, and I knew it, but I still wanted to help. The second thing was alignment. A lot of times I was out of alignment because I led from the heart, not from the business sense.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you something for all the listeners. This is like, I think out of all the podcasts I've done, usually someone will announce something else that is really, really external as one of their challenges in business. But this is really the biggest challenge, is you getting out of your way and understanding your design that God has given you. Misalignment will bring so much frustration on so many levels.
Yes.
And I have worked with some clients early on when I was in business, and it was, I was just like, I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand why they don't get it. And eventually you have to ask yourself a question. Am I called to these type of people? Am I messaging wrong? Am I, and it makes you question a lot of things. How did you actually navigate through that? How did you work through that?
Through the word of God. It was literally, as the scripture says, some plant, some water, some get the increase. I kept trying to, and God was reminding me, you would never get the increase. So you're trying to want it more, they have to want it. And so just really encouraging myself, people have to participate in their own rescue. And then also realizing that the more time I spent with someone that was unaligned, it was ineffective.
Yeah.
It was frustration. And when I looked at my clients that were aligned, I saw the fruit. And so I just decided to pivot. It wasn't easy. I just made a decision. You know what? I've taken them as far as I can go. And begin boundaries. Another thing that helped me was therapy. And what I realized is that the reason why I had a little residue of just enabling, and so just deciding to set some boundaries. Okay, we're going to work together for this amount of time. If you don't give me da 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 da, I'm moving on. And so I was able to just move on and get aligned without worrying about offense. And so those were the things, because it was me. Just wanting to help everyone. And so it was the best decision. It has been the best decision that I've made. And I'm sticking to it.
Oh yeah, I would never go back to the misalignment.
Yes.
And sometimes even as entrepreneurs, I think it's rooted kind of in what you've actually announced earlier, and it's like a passion topic of mine, especially on the life coaching side of the house of my brand. With the inner healing is rejection. Rejection will have you becoming Savior Sandy, where you feel like you have to save everybody, and it'll have you launching programs, doing things, trying to cater to so many people, but being stretched thin. You're frustrated, it's not bearing fruit, you wasting time, money, resources, energy. You feel drained. Them people drain you because they're trying to get something out of you that they really are not designed for, and you're trying to put something in them that they're not like you're just totally it's not a design, it's not an ordination there, it's not a covenant thing there that God has orchestrated. And so it's so frustrating to try to connect the thing that doesn't work. And for many of us who are emerging entrepreneurs, you're going to run into this. You got to wrestle your way through this thing, but you really should get real clarity before you launch. I don't think we do that sometimes. Sometimes some of us run to the marketplace because we're trying to abandon the 9-to-5 because we think it's a curse over there, when really, God could be using the 9-to-5 to build us up, build our character, and to know, because I always say it's very hard to try to lead if you've never followed. If you haven't mastered following, you're going to be a horrible leader. And so a lot of what I see in this generation, of course, not to deviate so much, but a lot of people want to abandon the 9-to-5 and hit the marketplace because they see the glamour of it, but they don't know that it really takes a lot of coming forth to really do it. Especially if you're going to do it with God, you got to do it His way, His timing, all of that, to even see the successful result. Otherwise, you're going to be hustling for every single thing, every single customer, every single client, where when God is the one who sends them, it's like easy breezy. It's like, where have you been all my life? This is so amazing. And what God has given me actually works for this person. It's such an ease.
It is. It really is. May I interject quickly?
Yeah.
I'm answering the questions a little bit differently because what I want to convey, and even though the questions are organic, is the more healed we are, the better entrepreneurs we are.
Oh, yeah.
And the more we deal with ourselves, to say, okay, sometimes we say that was a horrible client but sometimes we know. We knew when we accepted that client, they were not aligned. And so we accepted that frustration. So I began to deal with me. Why do you keep doing, accepting this? And so my pivot was really just looking at me and just deciding boundaries, 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 boundaries. And so now it's my entrepreneur journey is. Not to say they're not, valleys and hills or whatever, but it's not stressful.
It's not.
I will fire quickly. And now I have the mindset of, okay, this is not aligned. This isn't working. And so learning how to shift, learning how to pivot, and not staying in a place too long, whether it's unhealthy loyalty or whether it's just basically people have to level up at some point. No dead weight.
Yeah. It definitely takes some serious inner healing to recognize I always say entrepreneurship has given me the gift of going deeper in my relationship with God, because I had to depend on him to be able to do this, really, like to really do this. And even though I had my 9 to 5 still to kind of fall back on, there was so much stretching that was done in the entrepreneurship that the 9 to 5 didn't even have to do. Like God literally did so much work on this side. So when it really is a inner healing journey that begins to be activated in entrepreneurship, because as entrepreneurs, we got to be honest, we are trying to give something from us that is really personal to us to the world. And
Yeah.
so there is room for them rejecting it, them scrutinizing it, them judging it, them speaking against it. And you got to have I know my value standard in you. And that only comes when you have spent time with God to have the confidence to literally say, I am doing this not because of what they say, but I am doing this because of what he said I need to do. And that it is going to land on the people that I am called to. And in the process of him, giving you this vision, he don't tell you about the stuff he about to shake up in your own personal soul that you
Absolutely.
thought was dormant or that you didn't even know was there, that kind of comes up. You don't even know how deep rejection is in your life, or how toxic you connect with anybody and in relationships and stay too long in the journey, and they begin to be toxic to you because you're trying to hold on to something that God is like, let go. It brings up so many different opportunities for personal growth. I will say that entrepreneurship has grown, really, really grows you from a personal place. How has it been for you? How do you feel like being an entrepreneur has developed your growth, or what area has been like the one that it just really made you mature in?
Is discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, a lot of times people want an accountability partner. Hey, I want you to do this with me or whatever, but discipline, even as it relates to just personal development, certifications, etc. I had to study. I had to say no sometimes to the girlfriend lunches or the different things because I had a date. Have a hard date to get this license, or a hard date to get this certification. So it developed me in self-discipline. And I would say that's number one. And then it also developed me into really walking deeper in my brand, not just allowing it to be a faith confession. I know my value, but living my brand. I know my value. It stretched me in knowing my value monetarily. And so whether it's in corporate, whether it's in business, I was able to stand firm on this is what I know that I'm worth. I was able to ask for more when before I was always trying to accommodate. And so my stretch was realizing that I'm worthy of honor.
Yeah.
And it developed me in that area of, wait a minute, Erica, you sow, you give, you're worthy of honor as well. And now being able to ask for what I want. And so that was just, and stand on it.
Mm-hmm.
And not waver. And that's
And it's
freeing.
free.
And so it was like, now I'm living the vision.
Yeah.
Not just, a faith confession. And so that has been the biggest stretch. And now helping people do what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can teach it because I've walked through it. And not being afraid of the no, and deciding what are you going to do next. If somebody doesn't know your value, are you willing to walk?
Yeah. And even as an entrepreneur, emerging entrepreneur, you definitely have to get over if somebody says no, or they don't want to pay the price or the invoice or whatever the case may be. You cannot be offended. I have recognized more and more that the rejection of that person, it just means they weren't meant to be here, or they weren't ready for the process, or whatever the case. But it's not on me, it's on them,
Absolutely.
But when you're rejected, you take everything personal.
Absolutely.
Rejection is the thing God dealt with me about the most in entrepreneurship. I know that arena very well because of just the deep inner healing work that I had to go through to be free to do this and be okay with how the pace and the progress and the process that God has for me and my brand, because the entrepreneur circuit, especially with social media combined, it'll make you feel like you're not doing enough.
Yes.
It'll make you hustle and go harder. It'll make you sign up for every shiny object, every webinar, every launch, every 10K and 10-day, masterclass or what. It makes you chase things. And then eventually you recognize that you had everything you needed inside.
I believe that.
And it's
And
not
I
that
want
you don't take, courses. I don't want to put that out there, make people be
to,
like,
yes,
oh,
I
I
get
don't
it.
need this, but that you'll be strategic about which ones are really for you, and that you're not in this chase, this internal
Mhm.
chase of trying to get something when really the bar moves if you don't look inside, Go ahead.
Absolutely. I wanted to touch on rejection. One area that I received rejection in was my authenticity.
Mm.
Meaning, a lot of influencers are, and this is not all, and I know this because I'm intricate and intimate in finances, are saying I'm a millionaire, or they're using lifestyle branding. I never miscommunicate my social economic status.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people think you're not a millionaire or you're not blah, 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 some people will reject that because they like the lifestyle marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I've also seen that in the financial space that some people of color would prefer to hear it from someone who doesn't look like me. And I
Wow.
had a term, and I hate to use this term, but it was almost like white is right when it comes to
Mm.
finances. Like other cultures are smarter. And so I'd
Mm.
rather get my life insurance through them or wealth management through them, et cetera. And then when you go and it doesn't turn out like you want it, then you want me to come and fix it.
Mm.
Or when you went to a certain influencer because they had the numbers and blah, 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 and you pay for a service and it wasn't delivered. And I'm not saying that's not true across the board, but I'm
Yeah.
saying I received that, but because you felt like, oh my God, this person has 100,000 followers and they're da 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 da, whatever, I'm going to go to them for this. But what happens is they didn't pick up their phone, but you
Mm.
could call me. You could email me. And so you paid them $10,000 and you didn't want to pay me zero, but now you want me to consult you on what they didn't do. Or you could only talk to them in a group, but no
Mm.
one-on-one, and you want me to fill in the gap. And so that was rejection that I had to get
Wow.
over and just decide that I'm not doing it. I'm not the cleanup woman.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah, I
Yeah.
will do it if you retain me, but I will no longer, because I know my value. You can't retain over here because their brand appeared bigger or was bigger, and now you want me to fix things or do things pro bono to fill in a gap. I won't do it.
Yeah. I
That's my
got
boundary.
that. I got that in the beginning for sure, in the brand design space, because people just wanted logos, but not an entire brand experience. And I began to have to really think about, I don't want to be a disservice to people. Like when I was just doing these little small projects, I'll do your logo. Okay, I'll do this. I recognized that some of them would come back after especially if they didn't want to pay at first. They'll go to somebody, they'll get the brand, they'll get the logo done or whatever. When I'm trying to consult them about, it's bigger than the logo. Like we have to figure out what God is doing in your specific life and how that's supposed to look and how to attract the client, and that it's a whole brand identity process that goes with that. And so they'll get their logo. They didn't want to pay me at all, when really that one stop moment with me could have easily eradicated the entire process of you circling back, or having to do a whole rebrand because it's not exactly what you thought it was. You went with your favorite colors, or you went with, whatever you thought was good, but you forgot that God gave you a business for other people, not you. And so
Yeah.
it's supposed to reflect what the language of the customer you're talking about, not your language. It's supposed to be what they are saying, that is supposed to and there's so much strategy behind it, between the messaging and the branding and the marketing and all of that. And so I'm into that circuit so much that I see a lot of people that they will come and they be like, hey, I just want to get a logo done, and I'm trying to school them on the bigger picture, and they're like, nah, I'm good. And they'll go to someone who is doing logos for $35 and all of that, and they got all this fluffy stuff behind it, but then you want to translate it into apparel and it doesn't, translate well, or whatever the moment is. They all end up encountering issues that I foresaw for them, but they didn't want to listen at the onset. And so I love when you said that, I was like, I remember having a lot of rejection in the beginning. And I remember saying, I'm never going to explain myself or over explain why you need me ever
Yeah.
again. You know, I'm
Absolutely.
going to tell you this is what I do. This is the result and the benefit because I know my value and I know exactly what it can give you at the onset. And you just have to make a decision and be okay if they never sign on, you know, and be like, you're just not ready, and just move on, you know. So that is definitely something every single entrepreneur will have to
Yeah.
contend with. Our struggles are very similar on so many cases. What has been your greatest achievement thus far in business?
What has been my greatest achievement? I would say the end of last year, I met a gentleman that has a relatively large contract, and I didn't have to. He's never seen my resume. We just had a conversation about infrastructure of his business, and he says, "I want you to be my president, or
Ooh.
teach me how to be teach me how to be a CEO." And so my greatest achievement is that, you know, I have, through this experience, I've seen how your gift will make room for you. And that in the natural, in the traditional sense, you have to bid on something. You know, you have to respond to a RFP. My business is a woman-owned business. It became woman-owned business. It became certified as a WSB, woman-owned small business, in 2020. I had not applied for, responded to an RFP, but through meeting this gentleman, it's like the favor of God. Through him hearing me talk, he believed that I could take his business to the next level. And because he's a worker in the business, it's in engineering and gas. And so my biggest achievement was just being organic and authentic. I'm going to show up as who I am. I'm going to show up, in the marketplace, sharing what I know and that knowledge, and it opened up a door, not only for me, but for my husband. I actually met the gentleman through my husband. And so it was just like showing up as your authenticity, right? And when I say authenticity, I mean in your lane, being confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. I didn't have to present a resume. And to this day, he still hasn't seen a resume. And now I'm being added to something that's going to be zip code changing and will allow me to just do so much. And so that is huge for me because it aligns with what the Holy Spirit was speaking: work smarter versus harder. And this will allow me to work smarter versus harder and get help higher.
Oh, that is awesome. Oh, I am all here for it. I love to hear about big things that God is doing in people's lives and in their business. That is amazing. What is your creative process like with your clients? So when they come to you, what is it, especially for, let's just say it's workplace strategy? What is your process like with them?
You're saying like basically for their business, like business strategy?
Mm-hmm.
Is really number one, find out what is their vision, right? What do you do, right? So the first thing is figuring out what do they do, and then what if resources weren't a problem, if help resources, meaning even people resources, weren't a problem, what is it that you want to do? And so because I believe that people limit themselves because they say, well, hey, it's just me, or I just have me and one person. So I figure that out. And once they give me the whole total vision without limitation, begin to strategize. Okay, you're missing money, in this area. And I'll give an example. I have a client who's a chaplain, and she wanted to, hey, I need to expand outside of what I'm doing. The type of education that she has allows her to certify other chaplains, including pastors. So one strategy that I gave her was a lot of pastors may not be good at grief recovery, is offering a grief recovery program in ministries and even offering grief coaching. And then putting together packages. So there's a package, 6 sessions cost this much, individual sessions cost this much. And then you can do group support groups. And so she's literally like, oh my goodness, people who've been with her for over a year. And so literally just expanding, these are the resources, giving people resources for what is a cycle of grief, giving them handouts and booklets and different things along the way. And so even though that seems like, what is a chaplain going to do? So she's not a counselor, but she's literally taking people are grieving, losing a parent, losing a child 2 years later. And so packaging that and giving monetizing it through digital She has
Yeah.
digital
Yeah.
products that she's downloading. There's also, she sends like a monthly membership, something that she sends out to clients. It may be like, um, she's really into teas. So maybe like hot tea and a journal on a book, just different things to remind you of
Yeah.
your loved one. There's kind of those grief gifts, those things that are kind of just encouraging you along the way. And so that's something simple. The other creative process is really just seeing what are your gaps right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the right alignment? Like if you have an assistant, does that person have the gift of administration? What other areas? Like I talk about the minority owned business certifications. Do you fit and do you qualify for one of those particular areas? Branding. Do you have a logo? Do you have a website? Is your brand clean? And I don't do that area, but I connect them to someone like you who can. You
Mm-hmm.
know, because they've been in business for, sometimes people have been in business for a long time, and it just doesn't represent who they are. And so
Yeah.
that process is me knowing what I don't know, but connecting them to the right resources that can give them the whole picture. You're going to get your brand together. I'm going to work on your infrastructure. I'm going to connect you with an expert to do your branding strategy. I'm going to now talk about the monetization. These are your,
Mm-hmm.
how do we now package what you
Mm-hmm.
have? How do we price it? What payment systems do you have? How do you pay
Yeah.
yourself? Do you want to be
Yeah.
1099? Do you want to be W-2? Are you commingling money? If you are, let's go ahead and stop right now.
Separate. Yeah.
Is your business filed? Are you a sole
Mm-hmm.
proprietor? Or are you a LLC or Inc? You know, so really trying to make sure that that foundation is there. And then from the foundation, we build up.
I love it. I hope y'all hear all that because I'm trying to give you a clue that she is not playing games out here in this marketplace. You
And
really need to connect.
Key Man Insurance. You build a business, now protect it. You
Oh,
protect
that's
your legacy.
a whole different conversation. You see,
Yeah.
that's why she is a wealth strategist, a legacy strategist, business strategist. She will set you so up. I'm so glad I know her. It's so many things. It's like a whirlwind going on. It is so many things that she is gifted in, you guys. I'm telling you. And out here in these streets, you need to connect with people who legit got that prophetic eye to help you from A to B to C to however far that they have the resources to do so, and then to be able to give you what thus says the Lord on top of it, and just have an eye for just what is necessary, and to even see gaps when we don't see gaps in our own brand or even in our own business. So I love that you have so many plethora. I know when I was reading your bio, I was like, come on here, Six Sigma, all of it, because it's all so necessary. Negotiations, change management. Like she is definitely into infrastructure and into systems and processes and all of the good stuff that makes you work smarter and not harder. So
Yeah.
I am so excited about this. As we wrap up, y'all got to make sure that you guys connect with her. Okay, you got to. This is her phrase: shift from the rat race of making money and pivot to building wealth. We must be wealth distributors. We must see ourselves that, but we got to first know our value. That's why I love this whole entire brand. So I have some information, of course, that I am scrolling at the bottom if you are watching the actual video podcast. But for those who are on the audio, it's in the description. Y'all need to make sure that you guys are checking her out. Listen, Erica, I am so glad that you was just bless me with your presence on this platform. I think you're so loaded with so many gifts. I feel like I have met someone who speaks my language, which for my life, I feel like it's not many people. And so I'm just so grateful for just your presence, what you're doing in the marketplace, how God is using you. And it's just an honor to just have you on my podcast, to just peek into your life and really to see what God is doing. But before we go, what is one thing you would want to say to encourage and empower anyone who is emerging in the marketplace or even the existing Kingdom Women entrepreneurs like who are tuning in? What would you want to say to them? What would you encourage them to do?
I would say believe. And I would say consistency. I know sometimes we say this isn't working, but evaluate and say, am I putting in the work?
Mm-hmm.
And am I being consistent? Once I heard a phrase, well, it wasn't a phrase. Someone told me, I was in my 20s and I didn't get it then. They said, work harder on this. Well, this is Jim Ron. I'll give it to you. Jim Ron says, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That's one that I love. The other thing is she says, work harder in your business and give your job what's left over. And what I mean by that is, I don't mean, render to Caesar's what Caesar's. I don't mean be substandard on your job. But what happens is we give all to our 9 to 5. And then when it comes to our business, if we're still in corporate, if we're still in a 9 to 5, we're exhausted in our business. So because God gave you this business, you have to be as consistent.
Yeah.
And so set some time aside every day. If you can't do every day, say Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
Hour, 2 hour, blah, blah. Set a schedule where you're going to sow into and you're going to build. And just know that if you are consistent, if you put in the time, you will see growth. Also, comparison. Don't compare your growth to anyone else's. Rome wasn't built in a day. And some of the people that are on social media, you don't know how long they've been building. You don't know what kind of support system they have. And so run your own race. And when you run your own race, then you'll begin to see proven results.
Oh my God. That's a whole message for a whole nother day. That's a word. That's a wrap. Thank you again, Erica. This meant so much to me. Thank you for this moment, for allowing us to just hear your journey. Listen, daughters in the marketplace, remember you are custom ordered by God with custom orders in the marketplace. So pursue to live your life and to navigate your brand by God's design. Know that your difference makes the difference. So show up, be bold, be unique, be exclusive. Thank you for tuning in.